welcome to our June monthly council meeting for Corangamite Shire. I'm Kate Macon, the Mayor of Corangamite Shire, and I'll now introduce my fellow councillors around the table. I have Deputy Mayor Laurie Hickey, I have Councillor Ruth Gastrain, Councillor Joe Beard, Councillor Jamie Bogles, Councillor Geraldine Canady, and Councillor Nick Cole. I also have directors and managers around the table. I have Mr. Sean Broadbent, Director of Works and Services, Miss Justine Linley, Director of Sustainable Development, Mr. Jared Waff, Manager of Facilities and Recreation, Mr. Lyle Bond, Manager of Works, Mr. David Harrington, Director of Corporate and Community Services, Miss Catherine Anderson, Manager of Governance and Civic Support, and last but not least, my CEO, Mr. David Ray. First off, we'll go to the prayer. We ask for guidance and blessing on this council. May the true needs and well-being of our communities be our concern. Help us, who serve as leaders, to remember that all our decisions are made in the best interest of the people, culture and the environment of the Corangamite Shire. Amen. Corangamite Shire Council acknowledges and pays our respects to the East Maar and Wadawurrung peoples. As the traditional owners of the lands that we meet, work, live and play, we also acknowledge their elders, past and present, and recognise their ongoing cultural, spiritual and educational practices. Mr. CEO, do we have any apologies today?
Madam Mayor, there are no apologies for today's meeting.
And do we have any conflicts of interest?
No conflicts of interest have been declared, Mayor.
Thank you. Item number 5 is confirmation of minutes for the 27th of May 2025. Do I have a mover for that one, please? Councillor Cole, do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Hickey, all those in favour? Carried, thank you. Deputation and presentations. We have a deputation today on agenda item 8.1, planning permit application PP 2024/103, Boundary Road realignment, subdivision of land to create 2 small lots. This is a written one written by Claire Baker. I'll refer to Mr. CEO, please, for that deputation.
Thank you, Mayor. The written deputation has been received from Ms. Claire Baker on behalf of the applicant. The deputation seeks an alternate position other than the officer's recommendation to approve the application with conditions to address the primary areas of concern. And that written deputation was circulated to councillors prior to the meeting this afternoon.
Thank you, councillor. So that one is in your inbox for you to read, which I'm sure you all have. So I'll move on to item 8, which is 8.1, which is planning reports. Planning permit application PP 2024/130, 175 Lower Darlington Road, Deverney, 2-lot subdivision, re-subdivision of land to create 2 small lots for dwellings. Miss Linley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This current application is in effect a resubmission of a previous planning permit application that was determined by council on the 23rd of July in 2024. That permit application was PP 2024-035 as opposed to 130. That particular resolution at that council meeting, council resolved to refuse the application in accordance with the officer's recommendation at the time. The applicant has since resubmitted, and at the time of writing the report, there had been no changes to the Corangamite planning scheme that affect the previous recommendation from council. The proposal is inconsistent with the outcome sought in the farming zone and does not provide an acceptable response to the relevant strategic direction, planning policy and controls of the planning scheme. The officer's recommendation currently is that council issue a notice of decision to refuse to grant a permit. However, subsequent to the writing of the officer's report, a further written deputation has been provided by the applicant, introducing some new information and approaches. Officers have not had an opportunity to review this information, and council does have the option to defer consideration of application PP 2024-130 to enable further investigation of the matters raised in the most recent deputation. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Lindley. Councillors, there's a recommendation before us. Do I have Councillor Castrain?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm actually going to move a motion to defer this item in light of the fact, as Mrs Lindley's just explained, there's some further information has become available to councillors, but that was this morning, and I just don't think that as councillors we've had time to clarify and discuss those and to find out further information from the planning officers about what's proposed. So I think that we should defer this for a month and bring it back to the July council meeting when we're fully briefed.
No worries. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Hickey, thank you. Did you want to speak any more to that, Councillor Castrain?
No, that's all.
Happy with that? All right, if there's no other commentary, do you want to say anything, Councillor Hickey?
I think that's fair.
No other comments? No? All in favour of deferring the motion? All in favour, thank you. Rightio, move on to item 9.1, which is the Community Satisfaction Survey 2025. Mr Ray.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And through you, the report presents the results of the annual Community Satisfaction Survey for Corangamite Shire Council. The survey is coordinated by the Department of Government Services on behalf of Victorian councils. 400 residents were surveyed between the 28th of January and the 16th of March of this year. The key findings show a decline in community satisfaction, unfortunately, across most core performance areas, and offers a pause for reflection. Overall performance dropped from 64 points to 58 points, though still above, importantly, state-wide and large rural shire averages. There were significant declines in value for money, down 5 points, council direction, down 7 points, and community consultation, surprisingly, and decision-making. Customer service remains a very strong performer, but recorded its lowest score in recent years. Waste management and emergency management rate the highest among service areas. Sealed and unsealed roads remain the most underperforming areas, although there has been a small improvement. Demographic and regional insights reveal differing satisfaction levels across age groups and locations. And a tailored question asked of survey participants shows strong support, 84%, for continuing to celebrate Australia Day on the 26th of January. Mayor, the results will inform future planning, engagement strategies, and will be also reported in the annual report. And we'll continue the conversation internally, both with management and councils, to better understand the underlying drivers of these results for this year. The recommendations before you, Mayor, to note results and authorise publication on the website.
Thank you, Mr Ray. Councillors, there's a recommendation before us. Do I have a mover for that one, please? Councillor Canady, seconded Councillor Castrain. Councillor Canady.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mr CEO, for that report. I will start out with something nice, because it's good to know that we actually do continue to outperform statewide and large rural councils on most of the measures contained in the report. There is a lot of content in there, but I have to say that we've all sort of been very disappointed and struck, I suppose, by the decline in community perceptions on our core performance indicators. And we are observing a trend which is somewhat concerning. But the thing about it is that it can be difficult for us to discern the reasons for people's perceptions. We see the results, but we can't see the context around the way people feel about things. That's not by way of excuse, but it's probably just to explain that it's difficult for us sometimes to understand how our community perceives us when we do actually genuinely make an effort to do the best we can. We certainly are concerned that there is some dissatisfaction in our community, even though that by the measures in that report, our service levels have remained very steady. And you can see that we're still performing very well, certainly with disaster management. Our customer service is still very high. Our waste management is regarded well, and also community support services are well regarded still. But you know, those are the perceptions that are out there in our community, and you know, we are trying to work harder to engage with our community so that we understand what they want and what the community needs as well. That's certainly been a topic of conversation amongst us for some time, is how we communicate, how we can best understand, what our communities want from us. But and we're certainly open to knowing how we can do better. We're certainly given it a good effort. We introduced the kitchen table conversations last year. We had the Mega March community engagement leading up to our council plan, which I would say was very well attended, and we got a lot from that, and we're very grateful for it. But there are other times, so especially drop-in type of engagement, where sometimes we don't really get a very strong response in that regard. But we've got the report here. We genuinely want to do our best for our community, and we'll take on board what we're seeing, and we'll keep listening.
Thank you, Councillor Kennedy. Councillor Castrain.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And as Councillor Kennedy's outlined, we got this report and it was a bit of a shock, to be honest. We've probably been performing at a much higher level over the last 5 to 10 years, so it was certainly a shock. I think that there's a number of reasons that probably aren't all completely in the hands of the councillors, and I think that issues around cost of living, the impacts that we're seeing of drought, and I think the focus on state government, federal election, those sorts of things. People don't see different levels of government, they just see government. And whatever we want to do and how good we want to do it, we're still a taxing organisation, and when dollars are tight, I can understand why we're getting perhaps some of this response. But I think that we mustn't become complacent and think that, well, we're still doing better than the statewide average in large shires. I think we've got to strive to do better, and we've got to try and find out and get to the bottom of why some of these things have dropped. The community engagement's down 9 points, yet during March we had this mega march. We combined all these different documents and council plan, council vision, and did a lot of consultation with the community, but we're perhaps not getting our message across clearly enough that people have an opportunity to have input into those documents, which then lead into the way the council direction and council performance in the years going forward. So I really would like to see some work done. We talked about the kitchen table conversations that we had. It's going back out to the community to find out why. Is there something particular? What have we missed out on? What can we do better? So I think that it's a touch point, and we don't know what people were doing or thinking at the time, but things are pretty tough at the moment for the community, so I'm certainly aware of that. But thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Castrain. Any other comments? Councillor Beard.
You were waiting for me. Through you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Canadian and Councillor Castrain. I think you actually stole my notes that I tend to not have, but they're in my head. Particularly around not being complacent, and it does hurt when you for so long you see these tremendous results, and we don't look at this as us as a council. We look at this as an organisation. So it's really important that we recognise that, and I think I have brought it up during briefing, that this is on us as councillors. We're setting the direction, and then the executive. But from entirety of an organisation, I can see the lead headline now about how this has been such a big shift in our community satisfaction. I don't think it's a true reflection of what that means to the entirety of Corangamite Shire Council. Our staff are absolutely incredible. The downward trend is across local government, across the entire sector. It's not just Corangamite Shire. So I just want to reiterate that our staff know that we're taking ownership for this as much as anyone, and that we do need to go back and go through with it and just see exactly, as Councillor Castrain said, what have we missed? There's so many things now that we have to do because we have to, because of the Local Government Act. I used to think we communicated, particularly engaged with our communities far better than anyone. Like, we used to have an engagement framework that was the envy of a lot of other councils. And now that sort of thing's been forced upon all councils to have to do it. So are we doing it in a way that isn't cutting through? But we do need to acknowledge that there's so many layers of distress going on in our community at the moment. It's hard to not draw into the negativity of life. And we know that there's been some projects, particularly over the last few years, that have been challenging as an organisation. So I don't want us to get too caught up in, particularly as for our staff. I want them to remain really positive about the work that they're doing, and a lot of it is probably what's portrayed more so out in the public, which I think we're the ones who need to have a look at.
Thank you, Councillor Beard. Any other comments? No?
No, I think enough's been said.
Enough being said. I would just like to say that the staff are doing a great job, and this is no reflection, I think, on the staff. It's as Councillor Beard has said, we've got to take ownership over it, and we are taking ownership over it, making sure that we learn from what the results that we've got here today, and that we reflect on them and make sure we go out there and do the job better, I suppose you could say. But I also note that most people like their communication still in hard form, hard copy. And so that is interesting for me. I'm a bit of a social media person, like my digital stuff, but obviously the hard copies still resonate with lots of our community. So perhaps we need to go back and look at how we communicate with our residents, and taking a bit more of a deeper dive into that. But thank you to the council staff and wider community for responding to these. But council staff, we really do have your backs. You do a fantastic job, especially to those girls at the front desk, answering those phone calls day in, day out. You do a fantastic job telling people where they need to go to find the information that they required. So acknowledging that the results are not where we expected them to be, but we will take this on notice, and you can expect, fingers crossed, we'll have a better result in the next 12 months, and we'll tighten everything up and make sure we're back to square one. So nothing else to say on that one. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. If I move on to item 9.2, S5, Instrument of Delegation to the Chief Executive Officer. Ms Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you. The S5 Instrument of Delegation is from Council to the Chief Executive Officer, and is required under Section 11(7) of the Local Government Act 2020 to be updated within 12 months of the general election. The instrument delegates Council's powers, duties and functions which are capable of delegation, subject to some exceptions and limitations to the CEO. The councillors have been briefed on the proposed changes in limits, and the instrument has been reviewed and simplified based on advice from our solicitors. Madam Mayor, the recommendation is before you.
Thank you, Ms Anderson. Councillors, as a recommendation for us, do I have a mover, please? Councillor Hickey, do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Castrain. Councillor Hickey.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Yes, we have we've been briefed on the changes of the instrument of delegation for the CEO, and I'm very happy to move this recommendation.
No worries. Thank you, Councillor Hickey. Councillor Castrain.
No, nothing further. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Just a question.
Councillor Beard.
Just a question through you, Mayor. Just, and this possibly, hopefully, Ms Anderson can answer. And I'm pretty sure we briefed on it anyway. It's around the reporting back to not only council, but more so for the community for transparency. Noting that already there's a couple of contracts that I believe will now go into delegation, which would typically be seen in the chamber. So probably just some confirmation around the reporting process back to council. Sorry, Mr Ray.
Madam Mayor, I can
Mr CEO. Yes.
take that question, and I'm looking at Mr Harrington. It'll be as part of a review of our procurement policy that tenders approved under delegation will be reported to the council on an annual basis.
On an annual basis.
Yeah.
And will we get a little bit more context around that if we need it? Like, we can ask questions anyway.
If the inquiry comes, certainly
Yep.
Councillor Beard, we can provide the information.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Beard. Any other comments? If not, all those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Item 9.3, Contract 2026-002, Programmed Maintenance. Mr Block.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor, the purpose of this report is to award the contract for the program maintenance of council buildings for a 2-year period with a 2-year option. The program maintenance is to include external cleaning and painting maintenance at council facilities, including our community centres, halls, kindergartens, libraries, public toilets, senior citizens, and of course our swimming pools. 3 submissions were received through the process, all with varying degrees of experience, services offered and financial benefit to council. Following an evaluation of tenders, it's recommended the best value for money and benefit to council is achieved by awarding the contract to Higgins Coatings. Councillors, the recommendation is before you.
Thank you, Mr Watt. Councillors, there's a recommendation before us. Do I have a mover for that one, please? Councillor Cole. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Vogels. Councillor Cole.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Awarding the tender, it's a lot of money, but there's a lot of buildings too. And one thing about it, if you don't keep the maintenance up, they do fall down. And then you've got a lot more money to spend. So it's a lot of money to spend in the short term, but it's not a lot of money over the long term. So it's money worthwhile spending. So I agree maintenance has to be done, unfortunately. We all have to do it, but we have to do it. So it's important.
Thank you, Councillor Cole. Councillor Vogels.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yep, all in with Councillor Cole there. I think, this is a lot of dollars, but it keeps the weather out, it keeps the buildings maintained to a high degree. The better maintained, the longer they last, so stitching time certainly does save 9. I would imagine there'll be a lot of spac fill used in the south this year, because looking at the buildings for the drought around our way, they're all cracking and moving apart, so that requires a fair bit of no more gaps and a bit of paint over the top, so happy to second that.
Thank you, Councillor Vogels. Any other comments? If not, I'll put the recommendation to a vote. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Item 9.4, Contract 2026004, External Plant Hire and Associated Services. Mr Bond.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor, this report recommends for Council to award a panel contract for the hire of external plant and associated services. It includes both wet and dry hire options based on the needs of Council and also the offerings provided by the tenderers. Council has a substantial works program with a diverse range of both projects each year and also maintenance programs to deliver. The plant and services offered were by 32 tender submissions. Following the evaluation process, the evaluation panel has recommended the acceptance of 22 tenders. 10 tenders were not recommended to be accepted for various reasons. These include the capability and type of plant or service being offered, location of the tendering companies, high prices of hire rates, and elevated site delivery costs. Rates submitted by the 22 recommended tenderers are within industry benchmarks and work towards ensuring best value for Council when hiring these plant items as we move forward. Best value will also be achieved when selecting the plant items and also the contractors. This will be undertaken by considering price, equipment type, capability, availability and proximity to the worksite. Councillors, the recommendations before you.
Thank you, Mr Bond. Councillors, recommendation. Do I have a mover? Councillor Vogels, seconder Councillor Cole. Councillor Vogels.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, so you can't have one of everything, or sometimes 2 or 3 or 4 of everything is why we need to go out and get equipment from other people. So 22 various tenders that are approved because they also can't have one of everything and so on. Plus makes sense to get them from different areas and whoever's got the best rates for particular machinery at the time. So more than happy to approve this officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Vogels. Councillor Cole.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Same as I agree with Councillor Vogels, and the advantage of hiring equipment too is you might only need the equipment for 2 months of the year. So instead of buying it, having it sitting in the shed for 10 months of the year, you hire it for 2 and get it back. And usually when you hire it or lease it or whatever, they pay the maintenance and everything else, so it's one less job that council has to do and doesn't tie up as much money, so I'm more than happy to go with this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cole. Any other comments? I'll put the recommendation to a vote. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. I move on to item 9.5, proposed council position statements 2025. Ms Lindley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Council is often approached for comment on matters that have a direct impact on the community or the organisation, and we're often asked to express a view or voice an opinion at short notice. This report proposes that Council endorses a number of concise position statements on the topics of the Emergency Services Volunteer Fund, drought support, roads funding, climate action, the importance of agriculture, the impact of timber plantations, childcare, housing, 12 Apostles Precinct development, gas and the transition to net zero, and seismic testing. These position papers are based on existing policies or strategies and have been circulated to councillors in draft form under separate cover. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Lindley. Councillors, there's a recommendation before us. Do I have a mover? Councillor Kennedy?
Madam Mayor, I'd just like to move an alternate recommendation to the one before us, please.
Sure. What's your alternate?
So my alternate is that Council support in principle the attached position statements on the following topics. Do I need to go through them all again? No, I won't go through them all again. You've got them before you. And authorise the CEO to make minor alterations to those position statements.
Do you have a seconder for that alternate? Councillor Beard? Councillor Kennedy, would you like to speak to that?
Thank you. I have advised some minor alterations that I would like to see in those position statements, which don't really change the overall context of them or the messaging in them, but just little tweaks that I think will just make them more concise, more clear about what our position is on certain matters. So really that's all it is. If I can speak further to...
Go for it.
Thank you. The notion of having the position statements, as Ms Lindley stated, we have many issues before us just about all the time. We've got a very lengthy list there, and quite often, the community may not be able to sort of have a clear perception of what the council position is on certain matters that might be out in the public domain. So I think that it's a good move really to provide these position statements so that we've all got that concise information and I'm not really thinking very clearly tonight. That the information and the council position is very clear, and also that they can be useful for our advocacy role as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kennedy. Councillor Beard?
Thank you, and completely support Councillor Kennedy's minor changes to the wording around the motion. It's important that if we get the cut through, we need it to be punchy, and there's just three little words that I thought we can just get a little bit stronger on our intent, and that it aligns with, particularly when I look at the Emergency Services Volunteer Fund as one example, is around, we all know now that there's wording, things getting around like scrap the tax, and so how do we incorporate that into our messaging as well, and make sure with what we've been saying out there in the media cuts through within these position statements as well. So there's just a few more little minor alignments, but the context of the intent of what we're doing is, I'm really rapt that actually Mrs Lindley brought this to us from experience, that this sort of thing does bode well for us. So yeah, happy to support it, but happy to also have a little bit of work done around some of the words, and I think maybe the wording is following feedback from the councillors, because even though we've briefed on it and we've got it now, it's been able to actually pass those changes onto, or those additions onto the CEO before it's finalised.
Thank you, Councillor Beard. Any other comments? No. Put the recommendation to a vote. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. I move on to item 9.6, Victorian Renewable Energy Zones and Victorian Transmission Plan submission. Ms Lindley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This report provides an view of 2 proposed submissions responding to calls for feedback on the topic of the draft 2025 Victorian Transmission Plan and Renewable Energy Zones and the treatment of energy storage systems as part of the payment in lieu of rates, not wages, PILOR scheme. VicRid has released the draft Victorian Transmission Plan and Renewable Energy Zones for public consultation for a period of 30 days, and that finishes on the 24th of June. The 2025 Victorian Transmission Plan aims to provide a long-term strategic plan for renewable energy, infrastructure and transmission development throughout Victoria, and sets out how much more wind and solar energy Victoria is expected to need over the next 15 years. The 2025 Victorian Transmission Plan includes information about draft proposed renewable energy zones, a draft proposed Gippsland Shoreline renewable energy zone, which doesn't clearly apply to us, and proposed transmission projects. 2 of the 7 zones cover parts of the Corangamite Shire. A draft council submission has been prepared in response to the draft 2025 VTP and renewable energy zone areas for council's consideration, and that copy of the draft submission has been circulated to councils under separate cover. The closing date for submissions, as I said, is the 24th of June. Concurrently, the Department of Energy, Environment and Climate Action has also sought feedback on potential amendments to the payment in lieu of rates or the PILOR scheme to clarify the treatment of energy storage systems. So they include things like the large-scale batteries, which we know that there are 2 approved projects for Terang. This particular submission is addressing the issue or the concept of introducing a fee-setting methodology specific to energy storage systems as distinct from electricity generation. As these matters are somewhat related, a draft council submission has also been prepared and is available under separate cover. And the submissions on the payment in lieu of rates proposal are due by the 30th of June. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Lindley. Councillors, we have a recommendation. Do I have a mover for that one, please? Councillor Canady, do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Cole, Councillor Canady.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, we've certainly experienced some rather ad hoc approach to renewable developments and the significant impacts that these developments are having in the rural landscape and in our communities. And, you know, when you look through this material that we have in front of us, it's more than just about the wind and solar farms that we're seeing developed in our region and some that are already in the Corangamite Shire. But it's about the entire network. We've got production, we've got storage, we've got distribution. All these are being considered by the state at this current time. And, you know, we're also seeing an industrialisation of our landscape. We know that this, you know, we need to have some level of tolerance for this development, but you know, we're making this submission because, you know, this is an opportunity that we have and an obligation that we have really to support our communities by addressing the strategic issues and the concerns and highlighting considerations that VicRid really needs to take account of, so we can achieve better outcomes for our Shire and for our communities. To that end, we've highlighted the need for better strategic planning outcomes and to manage what we're seeing as a disproportionate impact on our communities and amenity. Fair community benefits. I think that, you know, we've certainly had some feedback where that probably hasn't been managed as well as it could be. You know, from the proponents to the neighbouring people, people that neighbour those facilities. We've talked about the Corangamite economy, which is driven by the agricultural industry. the protection of our high-value agricultural land, sustainable for food production and food security, the adverse impact on significant agricultural land, and something that we've had feedback from community members, the risk to agricultural expansion and operations, and that most particularly has been noted in the difficulties some farmers have had in building worker housing because of their because of being adjacent to a proposed or actual the wind facility. Also, our natural landscape and heritage values are things that are of great importance to us. So this will be ongoing work for some time, and we will be continuing to work very closely with VicGrid on all of these matters, and to take every opportunity that we have to provide feedback and to advise about local information and support the priorities of Corangamite. I will say it's not the first time we've made a submission. At least 3 times since 2022 we've advocated around the genuine engagement and consultation, the issues of impact and amenity that I've mentioned, and strategic planning and land use change, of which we've seen a great deal. And it is pleasing that, you know, we've had some cut through with VicGrid, because at least now that they are more willing to engage with the community and with the local councils to try and get better outcomes in this regard. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kennedy. Councillor Cole.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I agree completely with Councillor Kennedy, and I'd just like to see VicGrid perhaps consult a bit more on the proposed lines and sites that they're going to put their transmission towers and batteries, etc., in, rather than just coming to the community quite often and saying fait accompli, it's going through here, and there's very little consultation or anyone being let know or anything, so it happens, there's no real chance for any feedback from them. If it's also good, I think it should all be built closer to Melbourne, really, because then there's any good electrician would tell you, I'm talking about a good one, would say the more you put it away, the more you lose the voltage drop, etc. in the line, so you don't get as much power out the other end. So the closer to Melbourne, the better. So the Werribee Plains should be full of it, really, I think. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cole. Any other comments? No. I'll put the recommendation to a vote. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Move on to item 9.7, Business Assistance Scheme June applications. Ms Lindley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The purpose of this report is to provide information on the assessment and recommended funding allocation for the June 2025 round of the Business Assistance Scheme. There is one application under Stream 1, Business Facade Improvement, from the Camperdown Authorised News Agency, involving cleaning, repairing and repainting the facade to enhance the shopfront's appearance. We also have 2 applications under Stream 2, Creative Industries and Placemaking, one from Serenata Studios to support Christmas in July performances at the Theatre Royal, celebrating live music and fostering local engagement, and a final application from Sow and Piglets in Port Campbell to support the development of cultural gatherings inspired by Bray Eye traditions, featuring food and local artists. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Lindley. Councillors, there's a recommendation. Do I have a mover, please? Councillor Hickey. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Castrain. Councillor Hickey.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. It's good to get a word in tonight. This afternoon. I feel we've been a bit quiet. This is always a good funding stream. The authorised news agents, Camperdown Authorised News Agency, a bit of a tidy up coming into winter will be great. But I'd have to say the Sonata Studios and the Sow and Piglets, the entertainment they're providing is very well regarded. We are entering a period of the winter blues, but possibly particularly important this year, given that we've sort of been in drought for 18 months, and we all know the additional imposition that has on agricultural businesses right across the Shire, and of course the flow-on effect for that is to the retailers that are making business decisions around their businesses as well. This, particularly the Sonata Studios, but also the Sow and Piglets, provides a wonderful opportunity to be able to get together and and have some community participation again at a reasonably low cost. And the last production I saw was probably of a standard you'd see anywhere mainstream metropolitan. So I'd encourage people to watch for those two events and get along and see them at a time when we probably all need to be a bit better together rather than being fragmented by the tough times that are being imposed upon us at the moment, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hickey. Councillor Castrone.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I totally agree with Councillor Hickey and his words and the opportunity for people to get out and spend time together, and you'll be able to do that in Camperdown on the 27th to 29th of June at the Robert Burns Celtic Festival. So something that's coming up in the next week or so. So great opportunity to come along and hear some good music and some good food and a bit of haggis and a bit of Scottish country dancing to keep you warm.
Beautiful. Thank you, Councillor Castrone. Any other comments? If not, put the recommendation to a vote. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Item 10, other business. Councillors, do we have any other business we'd like to raise today? Councillor Cole.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to move or congratulate actually one of the North's wonderful citizens, as the North is full of wonderful citizens. Malcolm Saunders, who was mentioned in the King's Birthday Honours list recently. At Skipton, he lives at Skipton at least. He was awarded an OAM for, I'm just trying to find it actually, I pressed the wrong button. He was awarded an OAM for various things, but mainly for arts. He's done a lot of work with the arts, but previous things he's done is he's managed the Pyrenees community. He's managing the Pyrenees Community House now. He's the former curator of the Arts and Arts Facilitator Regional Arts Victoria, manager of the Platform Arts and the Performing Arts Centre as well. So he's done a lot of work in the arts, and I've met him up in Skipton a few times, and he always is very keen on championing the arts. So congratulations, Malcolm.
Thank you, Councillor Cole. I think that deserves a round of applause. Well done. Good job. Good job. Any other business, Councillor Vogels?
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. I thought I'd just give an update on the state of play for the drought, particularly in my ward, and from my perspective as a dairy farmer in our second year of drought.
Mm-hmm.
So just to highlight what sort of how things have rolled through since last year. So about 12 months ago, with the opening prices coming out for milk as they are now, they came out below cost of production. So we were already in for a tight year. So we're minimising maintenance and cancelling upgrades to equipment and infrastructure, crossing our fingers that we could get through the year with minimal losses. So we're holding everything together with rusty barbed wire and baler twine. We've even taken 3-ply toilet paper off the shopping list and replaced it with the Chuck Norris toilet paper just to buck it up and get through the year. And then coming in not long after that, we had a failed winter last year. So currently the cost of production is so high that we can't compete on the world market at the price that makes us viable as an industry, even though we are the envy of the world in our agricultural productivity and efficiency. And I think the problem largely lies with government over-regulation, over-taxation and policy that is adding to the exorbitant costs of energy. And I've just received emails in the last few days with more energy price increases. So that's something that we're copping over and over again. But all these things are passed on, and they're passed on until somebody cannot pass them on, and this burden often falls with the primary industries, because we have to compete on the world market against whoever can do it the cheapest in the world. Otherwise, people just tend to import stuff, so that sets the price that we can sell it at or what we can get. So everything the government makes industry do that is unproductive, and every tax that adds to the cost of production of all things that we buy is passed on, and we are the ones that cop it. As a fun fact, the DSVF levy will now be tax number 62, introduced by the Andrews Allen reign in power. And while we're on power, and the cost of energy is not just your power bill, but attached to everything you buy and do. The government might be trying to hide this through a rebate on your electricity bill, but the simple fact that energy prices are crippling to anything made in Australia, as all everybody that we buy stuff off adds that cost on to everything, and it's not just the primary industry, just for the general person as you go to do your shopping or to buy anything, you've got that extra added charge of the cost of energy, top it onto that, which is your cost of living crisis. But by August last year, with a far winter and the dams not having enough stock and domestic water for many farmers to survive until the autumn break, we asked on government to provide enabling support and enabling infrastructure in preparation, but no interest was forthcoming from politicians that are in government. And since then, we've had many meetings with the Liberal and National politicians and departmental people who I've had down on farm to look at some of the problems, and they've got first-hand knowledge of how bad the drought is, and can advise the ministers and the politicians in government. But I think they've had their ears painted on until recently, when mainstream media actually picked up on the drought as a story. But in the meantime, we've gone from pending disaster to actual disaster, and now beyond disaster into crisis. And being resilient went out the window a long time ago. And we Southwest Victorian farmers at the moment, in time, no longer have the financial or reserves to survive this drought alone. We are currently less than a week off the shortest day. With the weather cold, the grass will, with some rain falling, green up, but not enough to provide any grass for probably the next 100 days. So looking around, you could say that there's green grass everywhere, but there's not a blade to eat. My message to the federal government, with your Future Made in Australia policy, it's an interesting name for a policy. Well, here we are, Albo. We're made in Australia, and we're right here and right now, and it doesn't seem that you give a toss about the future of agriculture in this country. So good farmers are not hard to find. I'm surrounded by them in my ward, but I guarantee you this for sure, they're impossible to replace. So 12 months down the track, with opening milk prices being announced for next season in recent weeks, it is evident that the dairy processors are I'll try again, that the dairy processors are not only not willing to share the pain, but are looking for record profits, with Fonterra's opening announcement a lowball figure, and this is a time when farmers are looking for a carrot and a reason to carry on. Now that the Melbourne media have picked the story up, we have had a flurry of activity with Facebook posts, likes and comments from the ministers, including some covert visits to show from the Ag Minister and from the Premier, and about 9 months too late for a drought task force to be announced, but it's been announced. And luckily our Mayor is on the task force through her role in Rural Council Victoria. And if I may ask for an update, Madam Mayor, on what Rural Council Victoria is asking of the government.
Thank you, Councillor Vogels, for that passionate statement. I concur with your message. The task force has met twice. At the last meeting they announced extra weight limit of 15 tonnes onto roads so the heavier vehicles, trucks, can get closer to the farm gate, lessening the freight costs. Fodder testing in WA goes from 10 days to 2 days turnaround, meaning that fodder can get out of WA quicker, and fast tracking kangaroo control permits. We acknowledge these quick wins, but they do not go far enough. Rural councils are asking for fully funded rate subsidies for primary producers in drought affected zones, zero interest loans for those farmers as well, and direct funding for councils to boost local support programs and infrastructure funding. So as well as greater support to water supplies and with freight of those water supplies and freight for your fodder. Household allowances for supporting families through hardship, boosting mental health, expanding the rural financial council services and additional supports for our communities. That is what Rural Councils is asking for, and I think with those things we could help support our farmers going forward, because we know our farmers are the lifeline of Victoria, they're the lifeline of Corangamite Shire, and we need to support them as much as we can. And whatever we do, we'll be out there with you, supporting you and making sure that we get our voices heard loud and clear at those tables when it's required and when it's needed. So thank you for your passionate plea, Councillor Vogels. It's heard loud and clear, and I'll be taking that message back to the task force for you.
Thank you for your reply, Madam Mayor.
Is there any other general business? Nope. We've got no open forum. Would you like to say something, Mr. Mulholland?
I'll just add to those beautiful words from Councillor Vogel and our Mayor, but it doesn't really go far enough, because there'll be a few people that go bankrupt because of the drought. At the end of the drought, there will always be a shortage of cattle. And when the shortage of cattle, the price of cattle will go up. And there'll be a lot of people that decide the government didn't care for us. Here's our chance to get out, because we're going to get a very good money for our herd, and they'll sell up them. The outcome of both of those things that I wanted to point out to the general public means we're going to have a shortage of dairy farmers. And if we have a shortage of dairy farmers, then we're already importing dairy products. We'll be importing a lot more. And the blame is to governments for not acting now to save the industry, because we're facing one of the biggest crises the dairy industry has. And to say that farmers are resilient people, everyone that's a farmer now, their resilience is gone. They're all good business people, because they've gone through that much crap already that you had to be a good business person to get to today. So that business that farmers are resilient is long gone. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mulholland. There's no one else in open forum. We have no confidential items, so that concludes our meeting. So I wish you all the best of luck. Please look over that back door, back fence, and check on your neighbours. We all need to look in every now and then and just say hello and see how they're going. But take care, everyone. We'll see you next month. Thank you.